In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
There's been talk recently about expiration dates, best before dates on food, and some things the government might do when it comes to that. But do you check the bread tag date and then maybe it gets a little close to the day? Do you put it in the fridge, maybe trying to get an extra few days out of it? Well, you probably shouldn't do that. Apparently, you've been doing it wrong if you do that. A food expert is advising against keeping bread in cold temperatures. And that's not the only thing she says that shouldn't be kept in the fridge. So she went on to say that many people might believe keeping bread cold can help it stay soft and fluffy for longer. It can stale twice as fast in the fridge. It seems that colder temperatures make the starch recrystallize and then become dry. And that makes the bread develop a stale flavor and texture, which you can slow down by wrapping it tightly in plastic. Now, she suggests that freezing it is a better option, which prevents bread from going stale and stops these spoilage microbes from developing at all. So other food items that she advises against storing in the fridge: tomatoes. They do best, she says, between 65 and 85 Fahrenheit. So that's 18 to 29 degrees Celsius. Grab a paper towel and store them upside down, so stem side down. Potatoes, she said, they can end up a little gritty and even with a bit of a sweet taste, so toss those in a bag, wrap it up, and also keep garlic, onions, honey, and olive oil out of the fridge too. All suggestions on things that probably shouldn't go in the fridge. Freezing bread, though, that just brings back memories as a kid of not only freezing bread. Did your parents and family ever freeze milk bags? Because I remember mine doing that. We had a giant freezer in the basement, one of those huge chest freezers. And I distinctly remember having to go downstairs and grabbing milk out for the next day, because when it would go on sale, they would buy extra bags, and those bags went right in the freezer. I'm sure probably affected the taste in somehow, but when you're a kid and you're eating bowls and bowls of cereal, maybe you don't notice. What would you do in this situation? You're in the middle of nowhere. You're driving in your truck. And when I say middle of nowhere, we're talking northern BC area where this happened. And you see a moose cub just kind of out there and kind of wandering around, in a calf all alone. No mother in sight, but then you spot a bear that looks like the bear is hunting said calf. Do you take the calf into your vehicle? Well, that was a choice a BC man said he was facing. He was traveling north of Fort Nelson when he noticed that calf alone. And the calf almost got hit by a couple of cars, so he decided to pull up and try to, scare her off the side of the highway. As he opened the door, he said, the calf trotted over and started to climb into his truck, and that's when he said he saw a bear standing nearby. He said, I know as an outdoorsman, we talk about predator control. Black bears are the number one predator for these calves. Though I thought, well, I can't take care of the predator, but maybe I can try and help out the calf. In areas of the north where grizzlies are uncommon, black bears have been known to kill up to 40% of moose calves. So after waiting for a while to see if the mom would appear to scare away the bear, he decided to take the moose with him. He called the BC Conservation Office Service on the way to find a spot for the calf to stay. Several days later, the calf was taken to a wildlife rehab center. But the company that he works for, a petroleum company, felt a little differently. They said his actions breached the company's protocols around interactions with wildlife, and they also disputed his version of events, saying in a statement that two-way footage from the truck showed no evidence of a bear nearby, according to them, and said that he didn't appear to have looked for the calf's mother. BC Conservation Office Service is also investigating the whole thing, too. Now, the guy, by the way, he's not endorsing anyone doing what he did. He said he's got some experience with wildlife and has acted as a consultant for several companies, helping them create their own wildlife protocols. He said he's willing to pay any fines that he might face for his actions, but in this case, he still believes that he was in the right and that he did the right thing by getting this calf off of the road and away from a predator. We'll see how this all turns out for him. It may cost him a few dollars in the end. Sure, a little under the weather today. Matt jumping in and filling in on news for us today. Maybe it's good that Cheryl's off today because I know how much she hates snakes. And we've got stories about snakes, gators, and birds. And in this first one, someone in the UK picked up some broccoli at a grocery store, and they ended up finding a ladder snake still alive inside the broccoli. Ladder snakes are usually found in Spain and Portugal, and they're not venomous, but they sometimes do bite humans, as snakes do. So they contained the snake and brought it back to the grocery store. It was then transported to a zoo after that. I don't know what they thought the grocery store could do with it at that point. The grocery store did offer this person compensation and apologies that their usual high standards were not met. Well, I mean, we've all heard about things hiding inside of bananas, and in this case, a little bit of broccoli. A teenager in Tampa is in some trouble after telling an alligator, quote, "hold my beer," or technically it was a can of hard iced tea. So someone posted a video of some teens hanging out in a parking lot and getting a baby gator to latch onto a can of twisted tea. And then one of them picked the gator up with the can still in its mouth and chugged it. Well, an official at the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission saw the video and launched an investigation. Now, one of the kids, who we assumed is the one who chugged it, is charged with removing it from its habitat without a permit.
Stupidity. I can see multiple things in there. It's just wrong, wrong possession of it, wrong to just drop it on the hot pavement like that. In my opinion, everybody they got video that touched it needs to be brought in front of a judge, and then the judge needs to take some serious points of views to use them for an example that this has got to stop.
So the gator was recovered, released into a pond, and is alive and well. A team of Dutch researchers found an anti-bird measurement backfired. Magpies and crows are using metal spikes designed to keep them away to build their nests. So one of the people that was involved in this project said, on the contrary, the birds just utilize them. Some of the nests are made almost entirely by the strips of sharp metal. The most impressive was a nest made up of 1,500 spikes. So they call the creations basically a bunker for birds because they built around them so it keeps them safe and I guess keeps their young ones safe too. And one other bird story for you this morning, and I'm not sure if I like this one or if I find it a little bit creepy. The latest online obsession is a parrot that says, "I'm gonna get you," in a southern accent.
Go cuddle. Whoops. What are you doing? I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. Happy birthday. Give me a kiss. I can't. Whoops. Is that good? Whoops.
I don't know. I like parrots, but the thought of like that happening in the middle of the night or how often they might talk might be a little bit creepy. But boy, does it ever say it with that southern accent.
Go cuddle.
The world has been sizzling for, the last month or so in a number of places. Obviously, we've got a heat warning in effect here, 40 degrees today with humidity. And there's been a heat wave in Phoenix that's been going on now for several weeks.
So it could be a lot worse. I mean, at least we're not down in Phoenix, where they recorded their 25th straight day of temperatures hitting at least 110 degrees. Now, according to the Weather Channel, that streak is expected to end with a, quote, cool down. It's only going to be 101 degrees early next week, but then it's going to shoot back up to about 108 again. But how hot is it in Arizona right now? Well, doctors there say they're seeing a spike in patients who have suffered burns just because they have fallen onto the ground.
Falling on the ground causing burn. Burn centers are becoming maxed out, and about a third of the patients are people who fell, and it's serious. There are burn patients in the ICU because of falling outside, and that just shows you how hot the asphalt and the sidewalks are right now.
Yeah, so they're not just falling into grass. They're falling onto asphalt where it can be 40 to 60 degrees hotter than the air temperature. So, I mean, you think it's 110 degrees, add 40 to 60 degrees on top of that, and that's how hot the asphalt is.
And there's been days where it's been 120 degrees during this hot spell in Phoenix.
So it doesn't take much. I mean, some elementary schools, like this one librarian, claims his shoes actually melted when he was out doing his crosswalk duties. He was helping kids cross the street after school one day, and he said he was only out there for about 30 minutes.
I was crossing the students, crossing the parents, and all of a sudden, when I was done, I turn around, I'm sweating, I'm tired, I want to come in back to the library where it's nice and air conditioned, and as I'm walking back, I trip because this part of the shoe was like this. It looked like this.
So what he was showing was the bottom part of the shoe had melted, and when he tripped, it's because it was stuck to the asphalt because of how hot it was.
So the rubber sole of his shoe melted and stuck to the asphalt and kind of ripped off the rest of his shoe.
Wow. I mean, you are in the desert. I mean, take that with a little bit of an asterisk, right? Or where Phoenix is located. But when you're melting shoes and people are getting burned just falling on the ground, you know it's hot.
Yum. Science.
It's not rocket science.
Check it out. I blinded us with science.
Well, this first story could be bad news if you're a wine fan.
Prosecco and other renowned wines could be facing extinction because of climate change. This new study done in Italy have identified some mountainside vineyards, the primary source of the beloved beverage, as being particularly vulnerable to soil degradation and drought. So the lead author of the study said, the risk is not only to losing an agricultural product and seeing a landscape change, but also negatively impacting the local economy. And you could lose an entire community's history and their cultural roots if these wine and these grapes go away.
Well, because, you're planting them, and they grow along the mountainside. I can't imagine the soil is very thick.
No, it's very thin. And a lot of it has started to erode away. And it's starting to resemble it's just leaving the rock behind. And making it a lot more, unfavorable for growing not only grapes, but even just, fruits and vegetables that people live off of.
I can be sure that there's a lot of research and going into trying to figure out this one and, grow it somewhere else if they can. A new study found up to 20% of the time we spend on computers is wasted because of computer issues. That includes everything from your system locking up, programs that are poorly designed. A study involved over 200 workers who spend at least 6 hours a day on their computer. Each person asked to report things that slowed them down. Most common complaints were the computer was just too slow, or the program they were using froze up temporarily or crashed. Most of the people in the study were either IT professionals or workers deemed to be highly competent with computers, so people that knew what they were doing.
So it wasn't just like having regular issues like, how do I turn this into a PDF, or how do I make this bigger? Not those kind of things. These are people that are trained in computers that were still having issues.
So in the end, they found that anywhere between 11 to 20% of our time is wasted by slowdowns and just poor design.
So what's the solution for that?
You would think that they were using the most updated computers, but maybe not, right? So I guess it just means making sure your software is kept up to date.
Or glitchy software, right? That's on the computers that they're trying to use to do their jobs.
Yeah, gotta have the latest stuff.
Hey, a team from Harvard claims that they have found debris on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean that could be from an interstellar meteor, or maybe an alien spaceship.
Dun, dun, dun.
Whatever it is, it splashed down back in 2014. They found a bunch of small iron balls, so they haven't ruled out the possibility that they could be from an interstellar spacecraft. They say they've analyzed it, and it's unlike anything made by humans.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Well, this one, too, got people scratching their heads for a bit. A large mysterious object was recently found along the shores of a beach in Australia. A 6-foot metal cylinder generated a lot of attention, and, amateur detectives online jumped in, and they think they have the answer. It appears to be a piece of India's Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle rocket. And then they had one person, a professor at a university, support the claim. They said it looks to have been on the seafloor for some time, becoming part of the habitat for marine animals, and then likely a storm dislodged it.
Oh.
And it ended up on the shore.
It ended up coming back into shore again.
And that's why people were like, ooh, what is this weird thing? So it's not connected to the story you read about the little metal balls.
So they want us to believe.
Right? What can you do to stay cool? We've got a collection of some hot weather hacks that have been making the rounds lately.
So if you've ever gotten back into your car when it's been really hot out and then you touch the metal on the seatbelt, hot. So one tip is buckle the seatbelt when you leave your car. So when you get back in, the metal buckle won't be so hot that it'll burn you.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because it's not sitting in the sun.
Make sure you're cleaning your filter. So make sure you're changing and replacing those filters when it comes to your furnace. You're running on your AC all the time. Just make sure all those filters are updated and clean, because if not, it clogs it down and makes it harder.
Exactly. Then it's working doubly as hard and maybe not getting your house quite as cool. Another hot weather hack, make sure your fan is switched to spin counterclockwise. That creates a downward draft and pushes the colder air towards you.
I've never heard of this one before. I think it's a neat idea. When you start driving, don't roll down all the windows. Only roll down the driver's side and the passenger's window, and the cross breeze will be much stronger that way.
So just the ones in the front, not the ones in the back?
I wonder if you could do one front, one back.
Because then you got the...
Oh, I hate that sound.
The worst. If you're out wearing sandals and you have to take them off, flip them over so they're face down. So that way when you have to put them back on, your feet won't burn. That's a great tip, especially when you're at the beach.
Put any suntan lotion, sunscreen in the fridge to enhance its cooling effects. Good idea.
Put a few plastic bottles, about 3/4 full, in your freezer. And then when the water's frozen, put the bottle in front of a fan and then switch them out when they thaw out. It's a great tip, especially if you don't have air conditioning.
Put a large pot of cool water on the burner oven of your stove and vent when the oven is on. It will help keep your kitchen cool in the summer.
Yeah, because some ovens, right, they vent through a burner. Mm-hmm. And so if you have the oven on, if you put that water, the pot over it, kind of captures the heat that's coming out of it instead. It can also be tempting to open your windows when it's hot. But if you have no air conditioning, the best thing to do is close all of the windows and the shades that are on the side of the house that face the sun. One person even suggested putting your car's windshield shade over a window. I saw someone do this the other day on a video. I can't remember what social media platform it was, but they went over to like Home Depot and you can get those rolls of sort of like the insulation with the shiny metal, or like, what is that, tinfoil type stuff. And then they cut it to the windows and put it in the windows. And it seemed to make a big difference.
Yeah, because you can buy that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you can, get it and make it yourself, do it yourself, maybe save yourself a couple of dollars as we all struggle to stay cool. Well, the world is getting, I guess, more and more convenient where you can get everything delivered right to your house, right? Whether you're ordering online from various companies, if you're getting all these food apps that are available, except if the food app thinks your house is a restaurant.
This one couple in Tacoma, Washington says DoorDash had a glitch and somehow their home was pinned as a Popeyes location. So suddenly dozens of drivers were showing up at their home at all hours of the day looking to pick up orders. Now, there's never been a restaurant there. So you might be thinking, well, was it a location of one at some point and was converted, tore down?
Or
no.
one a block over?
No. And they said there's no restaurants near them anywhere close in their neighborhood. They said the closest location about 5 miles away. And even though they called DoorDash multiple times about it, they were told, quote, they didn't have the resources to fix it.
So they got the local news involved, and a reporter tested it out by ordering online. And sure enough, a driver came to their home to pick up the order, saying that this is where the app told him the restaurant was. Well, then, when the local news called DoorDash, they apologized for their earlier responses. Funny how that happens. And they did follow through with fixing it.
So finally, people have stopped showing up at their house looking for some fried chicken orders.
It's funny how suddenly after the news got involved, when they didn't have the resources to fix it before, oh, darn, we were pushing the wrong button. We suddenly have the resources now. Weird how that works.
Oh, well,
right?
and they always say, we'll investigate that customer service failure, right?
Shows you the importance of local news. Well, given this next story, I just felt it was appropriate that we play the X-Files theme because the U.S. Congress had its big UFO hearings this week, and there were some wild claims.
Like one of the wildest ones was that the U.S. government has recovered some alien spaceships and maybe even some dead aliens. One guy by the name of David is a retired intelligence officer with the Air Force, and he said under oath that people with firsthand knowledge have told them we have recovered UFOs before, or UAPs as they're now called. When asked if we've also recovered bodies, he said yes, but then he used the term non-human biologics.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
By the way, he's not just some random. He was high up on a Pentagon team that was tasked with tracking down all of this stuff and basically had the highest clearance possible.
Wow. 2 pilots also testified under oath. A former Navy pilot said that he and others flew with and saw UFOs. He said they look like dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere. Now, he claims they weren't normal aircraft because they kind of hover in place, even in hurricane force winds, and then they're able to dart off faster than the speed of sound.
And then the third guy is a former Navy commander who retold his story about seeing the famous Tic Tac UFO off the coast of San Diego in 2004. He openly talked about it before, including on a podcast in 2019. But again, all of this was under oath. So all three think the government is hiding information about UFOs, even from the U.S. Congress, and they call for a new way for pilots to report sightings without being worried about being discredited or losing their jobs.
Yeah,
right?
Being called crazy and sent for mental assessments, that kind of thing. But of course, this has set off a firestorm. People went nuts Googling everything they could about UFOs and aliens online after this hearing aired.
What do I think? I think there's more than just us. The universe is a big place.
I feel like the other intelligent life forms who've figured things out have gone here to check us out, and then they leave.
Because maybe it's like us looking at ants.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if they're that technologically advanced that they can travel across the universe, it'd be the same as us kind of looking at ants and going, cool. And
maybe we're their science experiment.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.